Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animation. I'm your host, Octaviano Macias, and today we're talking about a recent Netflix animated feature. Though, funny enough, this was originally supposed to be a Disney animated feature. There's a whole story there, but we'll get to it. Of course, if you're in the animation community, you probably already figured it out. I'm talking about Nimona. So, quick backstory for those of you who are not aware. Nimona started off as an animated feature that was going to be made by Blue Sky. Blue Sky, of course, being the animation studio that Fox usually pushed out their animated features through. Up until Disney bought off Fox, they acquired Blue Sky, and while a couple of movies, well, actually more like just one movie hit after they were officially bought off, and by that point, Blue Sky's fate was pretty much sealed. I don't know if they would have survived if Spies in Disguise had been a much bigger hit. I don't know if there was never any plans to keep them around. But what I do know is that they had one more movie getting ready to be made, and that movie was Nimona. Now, there's been different stories about why this thing got canned. The most obvious thing would be that Blue Sky was shut down, so they couldn't finish it. But there was a lot of work that was done on this already, to the point that it was pretty much ready to just be animated. But apparently, this is according to anonymous Blue Sky workers, so who knows how true it is. I don't think there's anyone who's officially stepped forward. If there is, feel free to mention that. But as far as I know, it's just all anonymous sources saying that Disney didn't like the fact that the movie was a little too, to put it plainly, gay. Because, just to go even further into it, Nimona is based on a series of comics. I don't know if it's ongoing or if it's already finished. I really don't know. I'm not into the Nimona, comic, and this movie does kind of make me want to check that out, but for the purposes of this, I'll just keep it as I don't know, especially because I honestly don't know and I haven't looked into it. But apparently there was a lot of stuff that dealt with, like, issues of like gay characters, the lead is non-binary, just a whole bunch of other stuff that Disney was just not cool with, supposedly. As a result, they decided to just shut this down. And of course, there's some questions about that, just because last year Disney did release an animated feature with a gay lead, which is Strange World. But as far as I know, that seems to be the biggest reason, at least again according to anonymous sources. I can kind of believe it. People, of course, change their minds, and studios will change their minds on these things. And let's not pretend that Strange World had the best marketing. I mean, there was marketing for it. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't see any ads, nor am I going to pretend that they didn't advertise it anywhere, because I saw it on buses, I saw it in front of multiple movies that I had seen. So there was marketing there. It's just that it wasn't the best marketing. Like, it was very plain. So it does kind of feel like, to an extent, they were sending this movie out to die. So even if they did make a movie that had a gay lead, I do still question whether or not they're really fully supporting that stuff. I won't say they don't, just because, they've shown their signs and whatnot, but, it is questionable whether or not they'd go all in on it, especially because they'd worry about the financial situation there. But yeah, so Nimona had its gay leads, had its non-binary lead, and apparently that's the big reason why it was shut down. Or it could have just been a casualty of... My hair is a mess. It could have been a casualty of the fact that, they were just shutting down Blue Sky. Regardless of it, I think it's all messed up. I know some people who have used the whole, like, well, it's anonymous sources, you can't really trust it. And the problem there is that, well, even if it is anonymous sources, we don't have anything more concrete other than just the studio, it was shut down, which feels a little weird, especially because it's like, well, why didn't they let them finish if they were already pretty far along? They could have just let them finish that and just be like, okay, after that, that's it. Because I mean, as far as I know, they still allowed them to finish up, like, like the scratch shorts that they made. Granted, of course, those would be easier to handle, but still, it's just like, why not just let them finish? I don't know. And again, even without that information, it's like, that's still messed up. I mean, either way, you're trying to say like, oh well, you know, they were shut down for a reason, so it's okay. They were shut down because they needed to save some money or whatever. And I think that's all just lame. Because I have seen a few people who are pretty much trying to be like, well, you can't be too hard on Disney over this, or at least getting mad at people who are openly mocking Disney for dumping this movie. And look, I think that some of that is kind of petty. I understand if, they're, crapping on some good movies, or just crapping in general on movies, because of course these are all made with, a lot of hard work and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm like, look, it's petty and it's kind of mean, but at the same time, Disney did shut this down and, fire a lot of people. Yeah, some of them might have been transferred over to Pixar or Disney or whatever, at least as far as I've heard. But at the same time, not everyone was, and it's still a little unfair to anyone who wasn't. So for this scenario, I'm okay if you're crapping on Disney, for doing this. Yeah, again, I think some of it is a little too far, but at the same time, I'm not gonna give it too much flack, because I'm like, I mean, Disney is in the wrong here, so I don't know. I'm not gonna be totally, defending them. Sometimes, someone has it coming to them. I mean, again, I'm not saying necessarily that, someone should be, punched in the face or anything like that as a response for their dumb decisions. But in some cases, if your decision is that dumb and you get punched in the face, I mean, I won't approve it, but at the same time, I'm not gonna sit here and judge the person who threw it, especially if they're the ones who were being wronged. So, just saying. So after all that, eventually Annapurna came in. They finished up the animation, and just to be clear, I don't know how much was changed in between whatever Blue Sky had initially and to this final product. It could be a lot. It could be nothing, as far as I've heard. Again, the movie was pretty far along in terms of the story, so it could be just that they just did the animation as they were told. I don't know. What I can't say is that, assuming that this was the product that Blue Sky envisioned before this all shut down, easily their best movie. It's honestly a great, fun time. It's just a beautiful movie. I wish I would have seen it on a big screen, but of course, because it's Netflix, they didn't give it that. And yeah, Netflix kind of sucks too, but at the very least, it's out there, it's being seen. You guys all need to watch this movie if you have not seen it. It's amazing. The story of Nimona is basically, like, it starts off with, essentially, I don't know if you'd count him as the main lead or the co-lead, because the story does focus heavily on both Nimona and basically, the person that she would end up calling her mentor for villainy, because Nimona's very focused on being evil. But basically, you got the mentor who starts off as this new knight who's about to be knighted by the queen. This is a very interesting world. Like, it's very, very much like a fantasy setting, but at the same time, it's got like technology, like futuristic technology. So it's a mashup of like Arthurian kind of knighthood stuff with just this future sci-fi world. While he's about to be knighted, the sword that the queen is using to knight him is holding like a laser. Like, once he receives the sword back, it just activates and shoots the queen. Of course, he's framed for murder. He tries to escape. while everyone is hunting him down. Nimona, of course, goes to him because she thinks like, oh, this guy's gonna be our new is the new outcast. He's cool. He just took down the queen and whatnot. So a lot of the movie is just about them pretty much bonding as friends, trying to figure out who framed them. We figured that out real quickly, honestly, and just trying to change the system because spoiler alert, but it turns out that the person who framed them was the director of like the Knights. So pretty much, it's a whole complicated thing, but it comes down to that pretty much she felt that the queen was losing her touch and was trying to invite in some more bad luck into the world by knighting this person because he was not supposed to be a knight. It's the whole like, oh, we're now opening up knighthood to anyone instead of just these select special people. Director didn't like that, so of course she frames him, and it's a matter of convincing people that she's the real bad guy. Along the way, there's a whole thing with realizing that the whole society is built on a lie. Challenge the cops. Monsters aren't evil. All that kind of stuff. And again, it's all really great stuff. In many ways, I was reminded of a lot of great animated movies like The Iron Giant. I won't spoil it, but there is a bit of it towards the end that definitely feels like an Iron Giant kind of thing. For the most part, it's just a lot of fun stuff with a lot of emotion thrown in there, and I can't stress enough that this is a really good movie, better than pretty much a lot of what Disney has put out in the last few years. And that's not me trying to trash Disney or anything. It's just me acknowledging, like, look, considering that this was supposed to be a Disney movie, this is surprisingly better than a lot of what Disney has to offer, at least in the last few years. If there is any major downside to this movie, is that aside from being released on Netflix, it's also that it released this year. Because honestly, I could easily see this being a big best animated feature, even a best picture candidate. But unfortunately, with Spider-Verse being another movie that came out this year, and look, not to crap on Nimona because it's a really good movie, but there's no denying that Spider-Verse is going to be the one that most people lean towards. I can't deny that I lean towards that one. And yeah, that's the one thing that I would say is going to be the big hurdle for this, is that you're going to see a lot of people. I don't want to say that they'd be dissing this movie, but they're going to maybe not as acknowledge it as much as they would because, yeah, Spider-Verse is out, so they're going to treat it as like the one true great animated feature of the year. You can have multiple ones, but I'm not going to pretend that I don't understand why that happens. A lot of people get very competitive, and while it sucks, it's like, well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It happens. I think that's no excuse for people to ignore this movie, but I understand that as a result, you're going to see more people pushing that, especially when it comes to award season, because it all becomes a big competition. That being said, if there's anything I would like to see this go for come award season, it's for the performances, especially for Chloe Grace Moretz as Nimona. I think it's one of the best performances I've seen in an animated feature. In recent memory, I honestly argue that it's the best performance I've seen in an animated feature this year. It's the kind of thing where I'm like, I really wish a lot more award shows would honor voice actors and voice acting performances, because this would be a top-notch one. It's just a great performance all around. You can see, how mischievous she's being, how much emotion she puts into it whenever she needs that, and it's all just really great stuff. It's the kind of thing where I'm like, we really do need that already, and it's a shame that more studios aren't pushing for a best voice acting performance award. And yeah, there's no denying that there's some great performances outside of that, like with the other lead character, Ballister, who's played by Riz Ahmed. It's, there's a lot of fun stuff there. At first I was kind of iffy on it just because I was like, okay, this guy sounds like he lacks confidence and whatnot, and not realizing that that was supposed to be his character. I was just like, okay, I can see what he's doing, but I don't know. But as it went along, I'm like, okay, this is a really good one. He gets, of course, outshined by his, let's say, mentee, but again, Chloe Grace Moretz as Nimona, best performance I've seen from an animated feature this year. I don't know what else to say on that. It's just incredible, and it's to the point where it's like, yeah, this is a good argument for the whole, oh, don't get celebrity voice actors, which is kind of weird to even say with her, just because I know one of her earliest performances was on one of the preschool Winnie the Pooh shows. So, it's not like she's never done this before, and it's not like she didn't do it for a good while. But again, big name, and people have issues with big names. This is definitely an argument showing like, yeah, there are some really great big names on there. You also get some good performances outside of that, though. You get like Eugene Lee Yang as pretty much Ballister's like love interest, and he's like the guy who's hunting Ballister down, so there's a lot of drama right there. And to me personally, even though this was the character that I was kind of worried that I would get the most annoyed of, they kept on giving him funny lines, and that was Beck Bennett's Knight character, who just every single time he's on screen, he's always saying something funny, something stupid, but I don't know, it worked for me. I honestly was worried at first that he was gonna get tiresome real quick, but it just kept on working, and it was just like, yeah, this is great stuff. Essentially, he's doing the same voice that he's done for like Launchpad, if you ever saw the DuckTales remake. But it does really work in this character role, and it's just a really fun performance. And then of course there's the animation, which I know some people have said that it looks unfinished at times, and it could be a result of them just using some animation from Blue Sky. I don't know whether or not they actually did use anything from Blue Sky, animation wise, because I have heard that supposedly they did. What I will say, I mean, it all looks great. I mean, even the parts that I thought it looked a little off, like maybe that's what people were talking about in terms of it being unfinished, I thought was fine. Because there's like a whole segment where Nimona reveals that she has shape-shifting powers to Ballister as they're escaping, and throughout that entire sequence, she's constantly going back and forth to like different creatures and whatnot. And that's the part where I was like, okay, maybe it's because of the room that some of it looked kind of off, because the whole area is like this very white building. So maybe that's what some people were talking about, and I kind of see it as looking a little off, but again, that might just be because of the location and not because they didn't actually finish the animation. And either way, I thought it was still a cool chase scene. Like the animation just adds to them running around as he's freaking out, and she's confidently showing her off what she is, or what they look. I'm gonna be upfront. I know the character's non-binary. I'm probably gonna refer to Nimona as her most of the time, not out of any kind of disrespect. I know the proper terms are they, them. It's just that I think the movie even acknowledges it as a she, her sometimes. But again, this is not me trying to insult anyone. I do apologize if I do offend you. I'm just trying to say it, and I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pretend. I do have an issue, not so much with non-binary people, but just trying to consistently say they, them instead of saying she, he, or anything of that. And it's not your guys' fault. It's not your fault. It's just really that this stuff is still fairly new to me, and the fact of the matter is that with a lot of society being shitty about it, where we don't really adjust to new stuff, and it doesn't help that there's a lot of people trying to prevent people from adjusting to that. It can be easy to forget. So if you hear me, saying that, just know I'm not trying to offend anyone, and I am gonna try to, correct myself. But that aside, Nimona just transforming into a bunch of stuff. They're going around as like an ape, a whale, all that stuff. Very fun sequence, and it's very hilarious. And I like that the movie, you know, because at a certain point it starts to feel like, okay, they're gonna play it all straight. Like, I know where this is exactly going, but then it throws some curveballs in there. Like, there's a whole scene where they find proof of, like, oh, okay, we found proof that the director framed Ballister for this murder. So let's go and reveal it to the people. And of course, people are getting mad. They're cheering, and you think like, okay, that's the end of the movie, but there's still some time going. So is there gonna be like some desperate act? And it turns out that they find out like, oh, there's this scroll that reveals the truth about Nimona and their origins. So as a result, there's this whole complicated layer. Like, okay, has Nimona been pulling strings around just to get their own way, or what? It ultimately becomes a whole thing where there's some distrust, and at first I was kind of getting annoyed because I was like, okay, are they really doing the whole friend breakup thing that you often see on animated movies, or really movies in general, for like the third act? But I think it does lead into a very powerful sequence where Nimona starts accepting the monsterhood of their existence. Of course, Ballister has to be the one to fix it, and of course, it's just a whole like, yeah, you know what, this whole system is bad. At first, Ballister was like, okay, it's just a result of a rotten apple. That happens all the time, and of course, Nimona's like, well, if that kind of stuff is that common, that means that it's not just a rotten apple, it's the whole system that's wrong. And of course we realize like how Nimona knows that the whole system is wrong. You realize that like, okay, so Nimona has more experience with this whole system than they let on. On the whole, it's an incredible time. I feel like I probably haven't sold it enough, and just know that it is a very worthwhile movie. It is a great movie. It's the kind of thing where I'm like, yeah, I wish they would have released this on the big screen. And look, not that I want to defend Disney or anything like that. Like, yeah, I know that it's wrong to trash the work of a bunch of animators, but I do think, to an extent, if there's been any kind of bad luck on their end, which some people kind of feel like that, I would say it's more of a financial thing, and just the choices that they had in releasing these movies more so than the quality of the movies. The movies have been pretty much anywhere between decent to great from them, but I'm not gonna pretend that I don't understand why some people wouldn't be more mad about it than just that. I don't know. I think they messed up. That's all it comes down to. I think they messed up. At the end, we still got a great movie. It got to be seen, and that's what matters most. But there could have been so much more fanfare, and there could have been so much more love if they had just let them release it. Like, I still think that they should have let Blue Sky live more than just doing that. Like, at the very least, if they weren't going to do anything with Blue Sky, they could have just sold that company off to maybe someone else. That could have been, great. I mean, they don't need to just shut it down, I guess, is what I'm saying. At the end of the day, they could have easily done anything more than just let go a bunch of people. And to shut down a movie while it was still being made, it's just lame. But then what else is new? Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time.
Want me to shift? You don't want me to shift? Pick a lane!
And now you're a boy.
I am today.
Wait, no!
Thank you for coming on today. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, where you'll see video versions of these podcasts. And if you just want to listen to them, there's always the option of just following the podcasts on their various sites, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, or Apple Podcasts. Whatever you choose, I hope you continue enjoying these. And if you want to support me even further than that, there's always the option of Patreon. With Patreon, even just $1 will get your name on the video versions of this and on other videos that I may do outside of these podcasts. A few dollars more gets you some behind the scenes info, and as this continues to grow, you'll find that there's more perks to it. So I hope you consider supporting me through Patreon as well. In any case, again, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.